So what is going on, everybody? My name is Mehul and welcome back to a brand new course on CodeDam Learning Path, Front-End Web Development. And in this path, we have been looking for HTML, CSS, JavaScript and building all these basics. But now we're going to talk about something known as Chrome DevTools. And Chrome DevTools is something you'll see when you right click anywhere on the page and click on Inspect. Right, so we're going to discuss in detail how this thing works, how you can make the best use of it. And obviously I'm just going to zoom in the whole series, don't worry about that. But this is going to be a very valuable course in terms of you becoming a front-end web developer. Why? Because a lot of people learn how to program, but not a lot of people know how to debug their code, or maybe debug others' code. And tools like Chrome DevTool are an absolute gem to do that. So if you have been following this course, you're good enough. If not, I'll just recommend you to go over through some HTML basics and advanced concepts and a couple of exercises if you want, and be right back on this one. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. We're going to be following this course pretty soon. I'm going to see you in the next one really soon. So super excited to start this. Hopefully you are too. Alright guys, before we start, I'll just explain the setup which we have here. So if you are a CodeDam Lead member, if you are not a CodeDam Lead member, it does not really matter. If you have an account on codedam.com, you can create one just by simply visiting. It's free. Go to this playground section and click on this HTML CSS and you're going to land on something like this. Now this is a neat interface which we'll use to, just make some changes and open this URL in a new tab and work with Chrome DevTools like this, because it is much easier to, debug and have a live URL to work around with. Actually, I'm just going to close this up, sort of. And so that we can have more breathing space. And yeah, for the most part, we're going to be spending most of our time in the DevTools. But anyway, this is the setup, and you can have unlimited access to all the courses on the website, all the playground time, this cloud execution time where you actually get a real Linux server, and all the practice modules if you sign up as a CodeDam Lead member, right? I'm already a Lead member, so that's why it shows me this. But you can sign up for $13 a month or $9.99 INR, depending on where you are. Or maybe if you want to get it more cheap, then you can go for yearly plans. So there's that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the setup video. Let's just go ahead and start working with Chrome DevTools from the next one. Hey guys, welcome back. Sorry to interrupt, we will be super starting from the next video, but I just wanted to take this video up just to discuss that if you do not have a basic understanding of HTML, CSS and JavaScript, you should absolutely do that first, because in this course I will assume that you have a basic understanding, because obviously in order to debug something, you should actually know the thing as well in the first place. So I'm assuming you have covered the HTML, CSS and JavaScript module. These are the only prerequisites. I don't expect you to do version control system or any of that stuff. But these three things you should be familiar with, right? If you do not know what JavaScript is, there's no real point in using Chrome DevTools anyway. Or, as a matter of fact, HTML or CSS. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. A very short one. I'm going to see you in the next one where we will actually start with DevTools. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, first of all, let's just go ahead and take a DevTools 101. Now, I'm going to close this one and I'm going to, right click anywhere on the page. On any website, it does not really matter on which website you are. You can right click on, oops, I just zoomed in. You can right click on any page, any text, whatever it is, it does not matter. And click on this inspect, this small inspect which you see at the last, click on this. And I'm assuming you're using Google Chrome. Obviously, that is a big requirement for the course. So once you click on inspect, you're going to see something like this. Now, it might be possible that you are seeing this in a different orientation. So how do you change orientation is you click on these three dots and you click on these buttons right here. So you see these buttons sort of denote the position of where this DevTools would be docked. So if I click on this, it is docked at the bottom. Now these are the two most common orientations which I personally use. That is, docked at the bottom when I want to have a wide view of content as well as DevTools, or docked on the right where I have, I can just simultaneously work with my content and the DevTools. You can also dock it on the left, which is sort of uncommon. At least for me, I do not really work like this. Some people might prefer this, but it's just your preference. And you can also click on this, which will actually undock it into a separate window. By this, what you mean is that you'll actually see a different sort of window altogether. So I'm not really gonna do this. This is very useful if you do not want your DevTools to affect your width or height of the screen, right? So if you have a width specific application, you know, something like a menu bar or something which only works at, let's say, your exact screen size or maybe larger than that, then you probably cannot really work in a very small DevTool, right? So it's better at this point, it's better to dock it out. So this is like how you change orientations in DevTools, and that is pretty much all you will need to work with the orientation part, right? We're going to be mostly like working like this because I like, you know, this sort of preview. It is concise, it is with the content, but feel free to switch to whatever you want. So that is all for this video. From the next one, let's just start exploring these tabs, which we see here one by one. And these are going to be complete sections of, you know, of the course. So yeah, there's that. So that's all for this one. I'm going to see you in the next video. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, we're going to be taking a look at console. So what is console, first of all? So console is the place which you can use. First of all, this is the tab. And by the way, if you cannot really see console tab, maybe you just need to click on these two arrows and then select console from here. One quick tip, you can actually drag tabs like this. So if you want console at the first, you can just drag it like this. If you want network at first, you can drag it like this. These are all adjustable, right? So once you click on console, you might see something like this, or, you know, depending on which website you have open, you might see a lot of messages. Now what that means is console is the place where you can log messages, to be precise. And not only you, the browser also uses the single place to log messages. Now this message could be anything, right? It could be a network request failure. It could be a JavaScript code syntax error. It could be a runtime error. It could be pretty much anything, right? Which is an error, a warning, maybe just success messages as well if you want to log. But the most common use case of console is for dumping information. So let's just go ahead and create a button in HTML real quick. So I'm going to create this button, and I'm just going to say click me to this, and I'm going to give this an on click of, you know, log something. And if I just go ahead and include this function right here, log something, and just write console log math.random, right? And if I go ahead and refresh this page now, and if I click on this, well, you have to call it like this. It's not like React or something. But anyway, once I refresh this again, and if I click on this, you can see that we get a random number in the console. So you see, this is the place where you get console logs of the scripts which you are, you know, which is executing, number one. Number two, with every console log, it actually gives you the location, or at least tries to give you the location of which file generated it, right? So if you click on this, see that a new tab, sources, opens up, and the sources highlights the exact line number which is responsible for that console, right? So for example, if I go ahead, let me see if I can see something. If I go ahead on the main website, if I go to console, you can see that it does not really help a lot sometimes, because on production sites, you're going to see most of the code is obfuscated. But we see if these are the errors, if I click on this index, or maybe like index 658, you're going to see, well, this one is sort of like a, not the correct one, but in most of the cases, let's see. Well, this is because like it's mostly compressed code as well, right? So sometimes things get fuzzy there. But what you can remember is that when you're writing code, when you're writing simple code, it actually gives you the file number, line number with the file name with it, right? So that's pretty cool if you want to just jump directly into it, right? So if I can click on this, you can see that it just tells me directly that, hey, this is the file, this is the line number, which was sort of problematic, right? So there's that. So coming back to our main page, if I click on this, you're going to see it gets us to line number 8, which is exactly the line which we are looking for. So this is like how you're going to use console. Very brief overview. In the next one, we're going to be diving deep into like all these things. filters, default levels, just going through a little bit of what everything does and just making you comfortable with it. So that is all for this one. I'm going to see you in the next video. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let's just go ahead and take a quick look at what all you can do with consoles. And obviously we have seen you can console log with a simple button click, but let us go a little bit deep into what all is achievable with simple console log statements. Why? Because console is sort of just a way in JavaScript to interact with just sending logs to the console, but you can actually customize them a lot, right? So I'm going to click on the first button, log info. It's just a regular console log, just like you would expect. And if I go ahead and take a look at this thing, which we mentioned in the last one, you can see that we directly get to the line which is responsible for generating this log. And that is this line number 2 on clicking the first button, right? Then if I go to console and click on log warning, you're going to see that the warnings are logged in a different way. And the way you log a warning is you just write console.warn instead of console.log. And you just write hello123 or whatever you want. And you can see that's how it becomes a sort of a special thing, right? So right now you can also see that you can use console as a REPL. That means as a read, evaluate, print, and loop sort of thing. So you can write stuff here. You can actually execute JavaScript code. So you can write document.getElementById, stuff like this. You can do all of that, right? So this is a very powerful debugging place. Now, let's move on to log error. So you can see that the errors are logged just like red, just like we saw earlier on the main website. And you can still jump to them, how they they get underlined and all that stuff. So you can see console.error makes it log as a sort of a reddish thing. Right, again, sort of there for you to get your attention to that you have to address the errors. Then there are some special console logs which are just for utility based. To be honest, you as an independent developer would not really use them, but if you're a library developer or somebody who's working on a debugging sort of place of plugins or something, then you might use stuff like log table, right? So if you click on this, you can see that it logs an array of values in a nice format, right? So if you have an array of values and if you want to log it, this is the statement which generated it, by the way. So if you want to log it, you can sure go ahead and log it like a regular array, which will appear something like this. But Chrome can do a better job of creating a table out of it within the console. So you can do that, right? Then if you click on log group, you can see a similar sort of thing with log group as well. So if I go ahead and click on this, you can see that we have a console.group starting off with a label, and then we have a console.group end. It's sort of like a little bit of customization here and there if you want. You can collapse this group if you want. If you want to become extremely tidy and nice with your console logs, this is something you can do, right? But to be honest, you're not really going to use this a lot of times as a developer. Then let's just log custom, and you can see that you can actually use CSS in the console, which is a pretty cool thing, right? And this sort of like deserves a video of its own, but how you do that, let me actually just go ahead and show you in the file. The way you do that is you first of all create a styles string, how your CSS should look like, and then you just console log it regularly, but you inject the styles with the %C and then pass the second one as the styles, right? So console log sort of like accepts the way the strings are parsed as a CS inside of a C or C++ library. For example, I can do something like, console.log S and Y, something like this, and you're going to see that %S does not appear, right? Similarly, you can do console.log D and 1, something like this, and it appears not a number because this is not a number, right? So it's smart enough to parse that. And now you can see it appears 1. So in a similar way, if you want to parse some CSS, you can say hello, and then you can go ahead and specify a CSS string like this, right? So I can just say font size 20 pixel, something like that. So you can see that's how it works. So again, you can do that and you can see it within the console. cos 404. Okay, you can see it sort of like request, makes a network request. We're going to do more of that. but you can see, like, you know, what caused 404. Then cause error sort of causes an error, which gives you a stack trace as well. But it's basically just a single stack trace in this case, because obviously it's not a major error causing, you know, chained up to multiple functions. And cause violation is hidden from you. And the reason for that is that violations do not come under default levels, right? So if you just go ahead and enable the verbose logging, then you're going to see this violation, right? And if you go ahead and click on this, you can see that we create a violation sort of like this, right? You know, it's just sort of a hackish way to do that. But the way it works is by default, the verbose logging is off. Why? Because verbose logging just creates too much noise in the console, and a lot of time you don't really need that. One quick information, if you want to sort of know that, and that is that console.info actually logs in the verbose section. So I can say hello there right here, and no, not info, console.debug. Yeah, console.debug, hello there, and you can see it does not appear here. Why? Because it has gone into verbose logging, and you can see that it says 1 hidden here because it knows that something was logged and it was not visible. So if you click on this verbose, you can see that hello there appears now, because now your logging is 100%. You might think that this is a good idea to enable verbose logging all the time, but you're gonna be just going mad with a lot of logs if you enable this. For the most part, you don't really need that, right? If you think that some sort of logs are getting hidden, or you want to dig deeper into library code or whatever, then you can go ahead and enable verbose logging. But that is like all you would need as a default level, right? So now coming to the filter part, you're gonna see that you can actually, let me just go ahead and generate some logs real quick. You can actually search using text, right? So it's very straightforward. If I just write, let's see, hello there, so we only get the logs which say hello there so far, right? And this group is empty because, well, the group does not contain any hello there. You can also search on the basis of regular expression, right? And if you don't know about regular expressions, it's fine. If you know about regular expressions, it's also fine. I mean, for people who do not know what regular expressions are, it is sort of a more efficient and mathematical way of matching expressions in a text, right? So it has a lot of use cases. I mean, email validation, or, you know, restricting the length of input or the characters allowed and all that stuff. But here you can also perform a regular expression based search. So if you started with a slash and ended with a slash, Chrome is smart enough to know that you're writing a regular expression now. So I can start with, for example, H, and I can say it should start with H, right? So this caret symbol right here means that it should start with an H. So you can now see that we only get sort of the things which start with an H, right? Similarly, I can write an exclamation mark here, and I could probably say it ends with, and it sort of like works, you know, for these consoles as well, because you have written these lines, right? But yeah, for the most part, that's how you can make it work. So yeah, that's mostly it about simple console usage. We're gonna be working with console all the time, right? When you're working with different sources and network tabs, I'm gonna come back to console again and again. But this is like the independent use case of console which you can use, right? So it is like using console logs, you know, using it as a REPL, using it to see errors on your page. That is a big one. You're gonna see all sorts of errors in the console. So if anything is broken, if you think there's an error on your page, some script is not working, probably the best idea to check console first. So that's pretty much it for this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Mehul, and in this video, we're gonna be taking a look at the sources tab, another super interesting and super informative tabs of the DevTools. Now in the last section, we took a look at console and, you know, how it all works. And in this one, let's just go ahead and start with an overview of what sources tab is. Now on the first look, you're going to see that it is a very sort of information heavy tab, right? So if you go to a site like, even codedamn.com and inspect it and go to sources here, you're gonna see it comes with a lot of stuff if you just start opening things, right? So you're gonna see it comes with a lot of stuff. So let's just go ahead and try to understand one by one what these sections are. So first of all, it's gonna start with a top frame, which is like constant. It'll always be there. You don't really have to worry about this. Then the next one is sort of like the origin for a particular asset, right? So on this website, when you visit any website, codedamn.com, it is possible that that particular website is just not using its own resources like codedamn.com/asset/logo.jpg, but it's also using some fonts or, some images or something from other websites. So you can pretty much see anything and everything a site is loading from here, right? Based on splitted on its origin. So you can see this website loads codedamn.com. It loads React developer tools, and technically I do not load it. It is loaded by a Chrome extension. So that is also listed here. So this file gets loaded. The React dev tools gets loaded. Then we also load a couple of fonts from fonts.google APIs, which in turn loads it from fonts.gstatic. So that is also fine. And then there's a Google Analytics script, right? So that's all about it. Then if you go ahead and take a look at this is something, I'm not really sure what this is, but it might be a sort of a chunk or something of the JavaScript, right? So anyway, this comes under the service worker category, right? So you don't really have to worry a lot about that. But at the end, you can see that it has a blob URL, which points to the same domain. That means it is of codedamn.com only. So anyway, coming back to the page sort of thing, right? So this is like the page overview of how it looks like. You also have multiple tabs within sources. So you have a file system tab. We're not really going to discuss file system in depth into this because this is a basic DevTools course. Probably in the advanced one, we might go into deeper things, but I just want to keep this one as simple. Then we have an override section, again, not something we'll discuss. Content scripts. You can see that these content scripts are all Chrome extensions, right? So if you are making an extension, Chrome extension, which works with messing around the actual page, you can go ahead and debug your content scripts like this. Maybe just see if you want. We'll come to debugging later on. But this is the place to look for, right? And then finally, we have snippets. And snippets is something I'm going to discuss because it's a nice little feature, which actually comes handy to me a couple of times. If I am, just sort of executing same script over and over again on a particular page, right? Those automation things without installing iMacros and things. But anyway, this is like the overview of the first section in the sources tab. The page lists everything. We don't really need to worry about anything else. And we're going to be discussing snippets later on. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. In the next one, we're going to be discussing these two sections as well. Don't really worry about them. These are actually the meat of the sources tab. So we're going to be going into that. So yeah, that's all for this video. I'm going to see you in the next one really soon. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let's just take a look at this sort of thing, which is in the middle and looks like code and looks like JavaScript as well. So anyway, what this code is basically the file which you have selected on the left, right? And you can select multiple files and toggle between them just like you would do in a regular IDE. So, if you think about it, you can actually edit your code within this DevTools as well, which is exactly what this file system thing is. But we're going to not be discussing this. But anyway, I'm just going to go back to our basic example because it shows much less stuff. So you can see on the basic example, we have a top panel with the domain name, what we have currently. And then raw.gitubuser.com, which is this icon right here, right? So if I go ahead and click on this, you can see this is our HTML document, which was loaded. Now, remember, you can see the same sort of thing in the elements as well, but don't be fooled by this. This is not the HTML document. This is the DOM representation, right? But this right here is the raw HTML document, which has been sent. This is your JavaScript thing, and this is your style.css. Now, this code right here allows you to do wonders in the JavaScript world, at least, right? So in the JavaScript world, what you can do is you can pause the execution of the code. And what do I mean by that? let me just go ahead and see this line, right? We have this line number 2, which says hello console, which is clicking on this log info button, right? So if I go ahead and click on this 2, this mysterious blue color appears now, and I have like 2 places to click, here and here. And this one is turned blue or whatever it is, right? So hopefully you can see all of that. I'll just zoom in a little bit if you can't. So let's see. All right. Or maybe like I could just, yeah, we don't really need to worry a lot about this HTML width. So now if I go ahead and click on this log info, you can see something happened. Something happened. What exactly happened was, first of all, your page turned a little, out of color, as if it has been overlaid by a simple div with a black color and an opacity. Secondly, this breakpoint, this is called a breakpoint, right? This breakpoint becomes active. And thirdly, you have all sorts of colors and information saying paused on breakpoint. You also have paused in debugger here. You have a couple of buttons. You have all sorts of good stuff. At this point, what exactly is happening is that V8 has paused its execution of the JavaScript. And by paused, I mean completely paused for this process, for this tab, right? That means nothing. I mean nothing. If you have a timer, let's just go ahead and just restore that timer. If I could, let's just go ahead and see if I could just, yeah, if we can go back and just play this for now, refresh this, right? And if I go ahead and let's see, go to sources, oops, we have the bad JavaScript. So if I have, let's see, the same thing, right? Refresh one more time. Let's just remove the debugger point, refresh. And if I go ahead and click on this, notice this timer, right? The time is going ahead. The time is ticking. Now, when I click on this, you can see the time has paused. Everything has stopped. The JavaScript world has come to a pause, right? So when you hit a debugger, JavaScript execution is paused. That's it. That's it. It is completely paused. Now you can take your time to analyze the situation where you are in, the variables of that particular function you are in. If you want to modify something, you can do that, all sorts of good stuff. So you see right now I have paused my execution in this log something method, and I am inside console log, which is not very fancy, but let's just go ahead and just play this for now. Go back and let's just go ahead and say console.log, or maybe like const random number is 0. Or not really 0.5 math.random, right? And I just console log this bad guy right here. Now if I go ahead, go back, refresh this, and if I click on line number 9, which automatically selects 10 because 9 is empty, and if I click on this button, you can see that in the console we do not see anything yet, right? Why? Because the console.log line has not executed yet, but we can see the random number which was generated. So it is in the scope of this variable in this function, and we have actually halted the function execution itself. So what this means is that what will appear in the console once you click on this play button. Why? Because this random number has already been computed, and all that is left now is to console log this thing. Now, if I click on play, we're going to see that 0.7265, what this number is, it's going to appear in the console. So let's just go ahead and click on this play button, and you can see that exact number appears on the screen, even though we did not know the random number, obviously, upfront. So this is how you can set a debugger. This is a very basic thing, the very basic example. And that's how you can analyze the state of stuff, right? So if I just go ahead and change it from const to, let's say, let, so that we can reassign this thing. So if I go ahead now, refresh this thing, and if I click on this again, you can see the random number in fact is 0.909, but I can go to the console and I can say that, hey, I want the random number to be 1, right? And hit enter and clear the console. You can clear the console by Command K if you're on Mac. You can also clear it by writing clear like this. So there's that. And once you're in sources now, you can see the random number. I have changed the random number to 1 by actually writing it in the console. And now if I click on display, you're going to see that you actually get one console. Why? Because I changed it between the execution of the function, which is a super powerful thing if you think about it, right? So now you can modify code on the run, not on the files or, something like that. So yeah, that's one way to go about debugging, and that's like a 101 for the breakpoint, but we have a lot of stuff to discuss in the breakpoints, so I would be getting into that in the next video. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. I'm gonna see you in the next video. So what is going on, everybody? My name is Mehul and welcome back to another video in which I want to discuss another way of setting breakpoints in your code. Now the first way which we saw is that open your script or whatever it is in the sources tab and click on the line number to set the breakpoint, right? So in this case, if I want to set a breakpoint on line 10, there's how I will do that. If I want to set a breakpoint inside the set interval, it will immediately pause after a second. So you can see it is paused now because this function takes every single second. So you can see now the world has been paused, nothing is executing, nothing is happening. We are all here in a frozen environment, right? And you can see that what all there is. Well, in this function there's nothing much interesting going on, but you can technically see the call stack, how this function was called. Well, set interval called it, so there's not an interesting call stack actually, but you get the idea. So anyway, let's just go ahead and remove this breakpoint because it'll keep on hitting. So what we want to do is, now you might be writing huge code bases and all that stuff, and you might not just want to locate the file and the exact line number all the time. So instead of doing these breakpoints like this, which might even lose if you restart your browser, what you can do is set a breakpoint using a keyword known as debugger, right? So this debugger is a standalone keyword. You don't really have to call it as a function or anything. And this debugger, once the browser sees it, it's gonna pause the execution just like it pauses as a blue thing, right? So if you can see that I have not really selected any breakpoint, but if I click on this, you can see the execution automatically stops on debugger, right? So it's a handy way to, just pause the execution without locating your code and doing all that sort of random stuff. And it works pretty much in a similar way. The only downside of this is that you have to you cannot really remove you can technically, but I'm not really gonna get into that. But you can just go ahead and remove this blue debugger right away. But for this, you have to actually modify the file. More on that later on. So yeah, that's pretty much it, how you can use debugger, and you have a couple of breakpoints as well. So you can set up as many breakpoints as you want, and you can mess around with the execution all day long. So that's all for this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one with some more interesting stuff. So what is going on, everybody? Welcome back. And in this video, let's just go ahead and explore a little bit of how much more of breakpoints you can set with the sources tab, right? So these are I won't say these are very commonly used, but this is available. So the way you can set more breakpoints is by setting up these listeners. Now, how they work is that you expand any one of them and you try to set up a listener. Now, I'm not really going to get into XHR fetch that much, but it works something like, I can click on this and I can say that break when, or actually, let's just go ahead and do that. Why not? So I'm going to go ahead and just go to sources on the main codedamn.com website, because that's where we make a little bit of more XHR request. And I'm going to write break when the URL contains infra, right? And hit enter. So now if I go ahead and refresh this, you're going to see that, well, we don't really make any request yet. So let me just go ahead and go to dashboard, and now you can see that we get a breakpoint hit. And let's see if I can make this a little bit much better. So you can see now that it says you paused on XHR or fetch, right? If you're a new guy in the town, XHR is what we use, how we used to perform requests back in the days, right? Now the cool kids use fetch, but XHR is very much still there. So you can see it paused the request when I was about to make request on infra.codedamn.com, and that's it. The JavaScript world is paused, everything is paused, right? Remember, the CSS world still works. That is why you're seeing this animation logo still working, because the CSS runs on a different thread in your computer inside your browser tab. So that's why CSS is not affected, but JavaScript is paused. And because JavaScript is paused, the DOM is also paused, sort of frozen, right? So if I go to network, you can see that, well, we have not really covered networks yet, but you can see that there is no infra.codedump.com yet made. But if I go ahead and, try to analyze the request, well, this is not very helpful because this is all compressed code, but in your sort of code, it'll make much more sense, right? So if I just go ahead and play this, so as to resume the script execution, you can see that in the networks tab now, we see the GraphQL request infra.codedump.com, and pretty much I get a nice dashboard as well. So the way we did it is we go to sources, we go to XHR, fetch breakpoints points, and click on plus, and it says me break when the URL contains. So that is how you can do it. I'm gonna remove this for now, and we can move on to DOM breakpoints. So you can't really set it like here. You have to go to elements and then right click on them and break on this, but we'll do this on the elements tab, right? We won't really bother about this yet. About global listeners, this is also interesting. Let's just hop over to our main site for global listeners, and you can see right now we do not have any sort of debugger or any sort of breakpoint set. So let's go to global listeners, or not really global, but event listeners, and you're going to see all sorts of events here, and expand the mouse one, right? And check the click listener. So whenever you click now, it will actually set a breakpoint, right? Now this breakpoint is because of my Chrome extension, which is bad because I did not really want my Chrome extension script to fire all the time. So I don't know what to do about this. But anyway, you can see that this extension right here, whatever it was trying to handle this particular click, right? So that is why it happened. For you, it might not happen because you might not have this extension installed. But if I play this, well, you can see Chrome extensions do all sorts of nasty stuff. But you can see if I click on this button now, you can see if I play it a little bit because of, Chrome extensions, eventually we're going to arrive to our on-click call, right? Why? Because we are also now handling this click event. And without setting up any debugger or anything, it actually gave us access to, just do something before we move on to the execution of the script. That is the reason. The reason for this is because we are listening for all the click events. So you can set up all sorts of events, although I won't really recommend doing this because this is a very generic approach. And if you own the code base, if you're in the development world, if you're on the development machine, there are much better ways, just like we saw by setting up debuggers and stuff, instead of going this route. But yeah, this is something you can do if you want, if you're trying to reverse engineer a production website, or some sort of web app which is sophisticated and you want to learn how it works. So this is how you reverse engineer stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove this listener for now and click on this play button so as to just get there. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I'm going to see you in the next one with some new things. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let's just go ahead and take a look at how you can step in and out of functions in a debugger call. So what do I mean by that? So first of all, let's just take a look at how the code is organized. We have three buttons: call starting, call E, and call F. The first one calls log something, and in the script, we can see log something sets a variable, calls another function, sets a variable, calls another function, sets a variable, calls another function, and then we finally have a console log, right? The second function directly calls the E function right here. It's a wrong call actually. Let's just change that. It should be B, not E. And the third function right here calls the F function directly, right? So there's that. So this is the layout of the thing. Now let's just go ahead and refresh this. And let me just go ahead and go to my script. And right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a debugger on this log something, right? And now I'm going to click on call starting. Now, what you can do is that, instead of just analyzing the state at the single point of debugging, you can actually move forward in time, step by step, right? So how you do that is pay close attention to this. Is the way you do that is you click on this button right here called step over to next function call. So you see the green line, which is highlighted, is always the line where your JavaScript is executing right now, right? So if you click on this, you move to the next line. Now remember, JavaScript is always going to move to the next line and next line and next line. So if I go ahead and click this one right here, it comes out of this function execution. So internally, it actually called B, which it actually called D, which actually called F, which actually console log something. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but we missed all of that, right? Because we clicked on this button. So let's just go ahead and take a look at how we can get even finer control with this. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this call starting again. But this time, when I click on this, you see it is about to execute, right? The B function is about to execute. It is not executed because, well, we ran it once. That is why it appears twice. But it has not executed, right? So let me just go ahead and play this one. You can see now it gets executed. So let's clear out the console and call it again. So now if I go to the next line, you can see the console is empty. Now, if I want to get into this function right here in order to, jump into this, instead of using step over, I'm going to use step into the function call. So when I click on this, you can see that it says that, hey, okay, this time you do not really want to skip over to the next line. In fact, you want to dig deep into stuff, right? So when I click on this, it steps into the function. And well, in an assignment, there's nothing you can do. So this button right here would not really work as a step into, but more like a step, step next. Then again, if I want to get inside D, I'm going to click on step into the next function. I get into D, which sets E, but this function and this line, this button are same. So I can click either one of those. Then I can step into this and, just like this, it ends, right? So there's nothing. You can technically go into console, but you won't really have a lot of output because it's an inbuilt utility. So once you have reached the end of the function, if you try to step into this, it'll just, go back to the last function because just like I said, if you cannot really step into a particular function or an expression, it just acts like step over the next line, right? So if I go to next line, you can see it goes back to B, next line goes back to log something, and our execution has ended. And you can see right here, once the execution ends, you also get a return value, you get the variables in scope, well, variables which were in scope at that time. You also get access to this. That's a classic JavaScript this, right? And yeah, you see all sorts of global stuff as well. So, just if you want to have any information. So yeah, that's pretty much it for how you can step over the next function by stepping over the next line, step into a function and out of a function. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video as well. That's mostly what you're going to be using. So that is all for this one. I'm going to see you in the next one really soon. So what is going on, everybody? Welcome back. And in this video, let's just take a look at how we can catch errors with JavaScript, right? Or maybe like catch errors by setting debuggers. So I'm going to go ahead and right here inside F, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if math.random is greater than 0.5, which gives us a 50% probability of crash the code. So I'm going to go ahead and say throw new error. Well, the luck is not with us, right? And now if I go ahead and refresh this, you're going to see that if I move to console and if I click on call starting, sometimes we get the error, sometimes we don't, right? And we just might get lucky if we don't. Well, it's a 50-50, but anyway. So you can see that sometimes even 7 times in a row, we will not get the error. So how do you set a debugger for this particular thing? Now, sure, you can go ahead and do that by just clicking on this thing right here and it'll just pause the execution. But a better way, or maybe like in a huge code base where you cannot really go ahead and set debugger on every error, the way to go about that is by clicking on this called pause on exceptions, right? And what this means is that whenever JavaScript is about to throw an exception, whenever JavaScript sees that there's an exception, it's going to give you first at bat, right? It's going to say that, hey, do you want to just analyze the situation? If you want to do that, and you can do that. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and clear the console and I'm going to start clicking the button. So you can see on the third attempt, you see math.random becomes greater than 0.5. Well, this is going to be a different number, I guess, every time. Yeah, because, this execution gives us a different number. So anyway, you can see that this time we can actually go ahead and analyze the situation. So if you go ahead and actually store this number in a, let's say, I don't know, a variable called chance. And if I say chance is greater than 0.5, and if I go ahead and refresh this, and if I start clicking on this, you can see now that I can analyze chance, what exactly it was. So it was 0.73 when the code crashed, right? So that's how you set up a debugger on something which is an exception, right? Now, by default, it does not really handle uncaught exception. It does not really handle caught exception. So let's just see. So let's say if I have a try catch here, error, and I can just say console.log prevented and oopsie, right? So if you have something like this, it's all fine and good. And if you go back to console and you just have the default settings, go back to console. If I start clicking on this, you're going to see we get in prevented and oopsie often, but we do not see any debuggers kicking in, right? And that is because by default, it does not pause on caught exceptions, but you can change that behavior by clicking on this. But this is a sort of a tricky thing because now a lot of JavaScript from Chrome extensions and everything are going to come into play as well. So if I click on this, you can see now that even though I was in try catch, it's still threw in a debugger for me just to analyze the situation. Well, we have the exception with us. We have the chance variable, that is the local variable. We will have all sorts of different variables as well if we were using this in a decently nice manner, but this is how you're gonna make use of it, right? But for the most part, trust me, you would not need this. You would not need this, right? You might be just well enough to go with this thing itself, right? So there's that. So anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, and yeah, I'm gonna see you in the next one really soon. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, I'm just gonna take a look at how you can deactivate breakpoints real quick if you do not want to drive yourself insane, right? So for example, a lot of times when you're working with, setting up debuggers here and there, and you think you have done your job nicely. So if you click on this, you are able to just navigate nicely over the whole tech stack sort of thingy, right? And it is all working fine. But now when you want to test it, you have to click on this button repeatedly, right? Which might totally destroy your experience as a developer. So what you can do is, instead of manually removing them and then making sure you remember to put them back again, you can click on this button which deactivates these breakpoints, right? And by deactivating them, it just means that they will never be called or never be triggered when they are deactivated, right? So it just works fine like it would without the breakpoints, but you do not really lose that information where you have put the breakpoints. So you can just activate them again, and when you start calling them, you are back to basics, right? So this was a very quick short video on this deactivate breakpoints button. I use it all the time. When you're debugging, you're going to use it all the time as well when you're trying to test changes. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Pretty small but useful tip. But yeah, that's all for this one. I'm going to see you in the next video. So what is going on, everybody? Welcome back. And in this video, let's just take a quick look at call stack and what this is, how it works. Well, from a computer science perspective, a call stack is a data structure which helps you to maintain, not really you, but the computer, which helps the computer to maintain the execution of functions, the order in which functions are executed, right? So let me just go ahead and deactivate all the breakpoints except the one in the F function on this one. So let's click on this right here, and you can see the call stack looks something like this. F at the top with the arrow pointing on it, then D, then B, then log something, and then on click. So what is happening? Well, if you think about it, call stack is actually a stack that is, a data structure again, which contains information about how exactly you have arrived on the function in which you are pausing the execution. So F gets called somehow by D, right? Because D calls it. D gets called somehow by B, because B calls it, obviously. B gets called somehow by log something, and log something gets called by on click, right? And this is always going to be a linear execution, right? It's never going to be that onClick calls two functions and you're going to see that. Well, it could call two functions technically, log something can call two functions, but then you're not really seeing the call stack of that particular function, right? Because a single function at a single time can call only a single function, because JavaScript is single threaded, right? That is the whole point. So whenever you stop the execution of the single thread, you're going to always get a linear call stack like this. So anyway, coming back to function f, you can see just like, with the line number and all that stuff. So this is like all you have to like really worry about for a call stack. But the interesting thing about a call stack is that you can jump over into different functions and you can inspect their local variables, right? So even though function f is executing right now, JavaScript actually maintains the local variables of all the functions, right? I mean, it has to, right? Because you might use e variable after calling this function. And a sort of a version, a closure in JavaScript is actually based on a similar concept, but it is like this function gets executed completely, but still you have to maintain the local variables. But that's a topic for another day. But yeah, I just remembered that thing from this sort of thing. But anyway, you can see that you can inspect the local variables of a function whenever you are jumping into it. So that's a pretty cool thing, right? And it won't really matter if you even name them as same const a and const a, because local variables are, independent from each other. So there's that. So yeah, that's a basic introduction of what call stack is, and you can jump around little call stacks here and there. And you can see that inside of onClick, you actually get these things. That event is also there as a variable. So you can actually write event here, and that will appear as a event of the click event, right? So you can do all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one with a lot of more information. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video in which we'll be taking a look at how you can save or edit or update your JavaScript code directly from Chrome DevTools. And let me just explain on what I mean by that. So let's just go ahead and open the JavaScript file. You can see this is basically a very simple script which adds or increments the time, on the page. So if I go ahead and open this in a new tab, this particular URL right here, you're gonna see we get the same thing, but let's just hop into DevTools, right? So we are still in the sources tab. You can see we have been working with sources for a while in this section. And if I go top this section and script.js, you can see this is like the pretty much what we have right now. Now, what you can do is you can actually make edits directly in this particular file. You can just hop over to any place, and just like a text editor, you're going to make edits, but you're going to see that it does not reflect. So you press Command S to save the file, or Control S on the system, and you're going to see it still does not affect. Why? Because now you might have, you probably might have seen that the time should be updated every 2 seconds, not every second, but it still works just like before. Now this is because when you update your JavaScript here directly inside the Chrome DevTools, your JavaScript is not reloaded. However, any future event or any future call to a particular function or something is updated. So V8 actually patches the file in the memory itself, right? Let me just tell you what do I mean by that. So let's just go ahead and create a function here which says, I don't know, return time duration, for example, right? And from here, I return 1000 instead of just hard coding it. And right here, or this probably might not be the right example because this will just be called once. Yeah, because you cannot really update the interval while it's running. So let's do a little bit different thing. So I'm gonna call a function here. Let's say console log something, a very simple thing, which console logs something every single second. And this is just console.log something funny. I don't know. I'm a boring guy at choosing examples. But anyway, now if you go ahead and refresh this page, you're gonna see every single second you get this console log of something funny, right? Now, what you can do is you can hop over in this file, which is selected automatically in the sources tab. You can just go ahead and close the other ones. It kind of is confusing, but these are just extension files, not really loaded on the page. And you can change this behavior. You can say something not funny, right? And once you do that, hit Command S to save it or Control S on your systems. And now when you go to the console, you're going to see something not funny keeps on getting logged. So you have seen that you have in real time actually changed the JavaScript's behavior, right? So it is patched on the run. So that is how you can make some changes if you want. For example, you know, if you have a button right here. So if you have a button, I don't know. Let's create a button here. Button on click. Some action, right? Call some action. And right here, let's say that you made a mistake when you're coding, right? So if you have some action, let's say you do some processing, and then you finally alert some action completed, right? But let's say you made some mistake and there's some syntax error, or you know, you have a variable var1 is 100 and then you try to do var2 is 200, right? So you have something like this and something like, you know, not var2, var1 itself and var1, right? So this is an error, right? Because you're reassigning to const value. But let's just go ahead and refresh this page now. Click on this button and you're going to see in the console, you get assignment to constant variable as the error, which is exactly what you will expect. And we also have another error. So let's just remove that so that we can just keep focus on the single one. So you can see this is an error. So what you can do is hop over into this. You can edit this statement within itself. Now you can either make this let or remove this line, save this right here. And now if you click on this, you're going to see that you get an alert, nice alert, some action completed with 200, right? So you can see it's a very quick way to iterate over changes instead of like manually jumping to and fro in your file system. And it helps you save a lot of time, right? It helps you save a lot of time when you are like trying to try different behaviors, trying to see different things without actually leaving your text editor. You know, it's even faster than me making a change here because the page refreshes and all that stuff happens. It sort of is like a hot fix, but I won't really say it because it won't really refresh your things if they are changed in the global scope, right? It only just patches it in the memory itself and that's it. Now, the next time that function is called, you're going to use the new definition and new code. So there's that. So super efficient, super useful for function-based or event-based things, which can be called again and again. And I just thought you should know about it. So yeah, that's it. That's how you do sort of patching with DevTools. Obviously, this is not written to the file system. So you manually have to copy paste these changes in your file if you want. But this you can use as a sort of a means to quickly check. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I'm going to see you in the next one really soon. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let's just go ahead and take a look at snippets in JS console, right? Not really JS. So let me just go ahead and remove this. First of all, this action is not really required. Or maybe, you know, we can do that if you want. But anyway, it does not really make any sense. But if I refresh this now, you're going to see that we have no error in the console in the sources tab. So that's a good thing. Now, the next thing is that right here, you can see within sources tab, we have a lot of tabs, which we discussed earlier. But we're going to go ahead and click on the snippets right here. Now, snippet is just like it says, create and save code for later use, is a way to execute a certain block of JavaScript like almost immediately, right? So I'm going to tell you a real world use case of this. Let me just see if I am logged into my S3 account. And if I am, no, I'm not. But anyway, if I was able to log into S3, I don't have the password yet for this thing. But yeah, if you are logged into S3, what I usually do is I need to like get the individual files of the uploaded folder, right, from S3. So you can create a sort of a snippet which just extracts all that information from the DOM, and I only need that for that particular domain, right? So that is like one use case or one real world use case of snippets. But anyway, you can click on this new snippet button and you can say something like make document editable, right? And now whatever you write here is gonna be a snippet. So let's just go ahead and start with a very simple one. I'm just gonna say console log, this is a snippet, right? And that's it. Command S again to save it, and you're good to go. Now, once you have saved the snippet, the way you run it is you click on this particular icon right here, or press Command Enter in case of Mac, or maybe like Control Enter for Windows. I don't know the shortcut for Windows. So once you click on this, it's gonna run it, and it's just gonna throw the console just to check if there's any error or something. So this could be multi-line. This does not have to be a single line. You can also have something like const h1s, for example. I think this is an h1. Yep. So you can have h1s, and you can say document dot query selector all h1, and you can just console logs h1 dot map t dot inner text. And yeah, that's about it. So just go ahead and hit save and run the snippet again. And you're gonna see h1s.map is not a function, because I hope you know from the JavaScript lessons that query selector all returns an array of node list, which does not come with a map function. That is why you have to destruct it into a typical array, which comes with a map function. Hopefully you know this. If not, now you know. So go ahead and hit save and run this again. And h1s has already been declared, of course, because at the end the snippet is executing in the same context. So you can just go ahead and, I don't know, h1 tags for the moment, right? And hit save, run the snippet again, and you can see that you get welcome to code now. So, it could be like useful if you want to once in a while extract out some data from a website. You can just write the snippet here and be done with it, right? A lot of times I use this for also opening a lot of links quickly, right? So you can have a sort of a snippet which has something like a links array, which has link 1, link 2, link 3. I do this in my mentorship programs when I have to review the diaries of people in the CodeDam mentorship. So I have multiple diaries here. And what I will do is I will just write a loop links.forEach link. First of all, these links are extracted from the Excel sheet. And then for every link, I would just say window.open that link with a target blank. So, I can just save this as the snippet and just go ahead every time and run it directly, right? So there's that. There's another way to run the snippet. Let me just go ahead and switch to the basic one. Hello world. There's another way to run the snippet, and that is to press Command P on your system. And once you do that, this nice little dialog box opens up. It could be Control P on the Windows system, or it could be, I think, Control O. I'm not really sure, because Command O also works, I guess. Yep. Command P and Command O both work for Mac, but I guess Windows would either be Control P or Control O. So once you press that, just write an exclamation mark, and you're gonna see all the snippets which you can execute. And you can do this from any tab actually. Press Command P, exclamation, make document editable, and hit enter, and that snippet will get executed. Super convenient and a nice way to store some sort of reusable JavaScripts inside your DevTools environment. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. That's how you create and run snippets. A sort of a nice little addition to DevTools, not of much use in debugging and stuff, but it's always good to have little features here and there. So that's all for this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one. So what is going on, everybody? My name is Mehul and welcome back to another video in which we'll be starting off with a new section in Chrome DevTools, and that is gonna be Networks tab. This is like, I could say this is like one of my favorites, although I will just keep that to sources. But this is a super interesting tab, and you're gonna be using this a lot of times as a front-end developer to debug issues with backends, right? Or API calls. So super excited to start with this and tell you a lot of things about this. But yeah, that's how we're gonna roll in this section. So that is all for this video. Let me just go ahead and jump over to the next one really soon. Alright everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let's just go ahead and take a look at an overview of network request. So first things first, whenever you open a website and you right click, inspect and go to network, chances are you're not gonna see the request at all, or maybe just a couple of requests which have just been made, right? And the reason for this is that Chrome actually starts logging the network request nicely for you only when you have DevTools open, right? You might think, why is that? Because just making these logs appear and just doing sort of storing of these network requests to be displayed in the DevTools is sort of something which requires some CPU and memory and all that stuff. And for the most part of people who are not developers, I mean, Chrome has a very huge chunk of market share and not a lot of people out of them would be developers. It does not really make sense to just hold that CPU and memory wasting over here, right? So that is why Chrome just introduces the logs whenever you have them opened. Otherwise, it will not, log the request in the background. So anyway, once you are in this tab, you might not see it something like this. You might see it something like this, as far as I remember, right? So this is how the typical tab starts. Now, the first thing you can do is you can just go ahead and disable them from here. To be honest, I don't really use this overview feature, which shows the latency and, the request time a lot, because as a front-end developer, if you're a front-end developer, you cannot really do much to improve this. This is just depends on the DNS time and the DNS resolution time and the request time and response time and all that stuff. So you can go ahead and keep this disabled just to keep a clean view. And once you have done that, you would probably also, I mean, if you do not see this filters right here, then make sure you click on this, because this is just a nice thing to have on screen. Next up is this button right here. So what you're going to see is, as I browse this website, let's say codedamn.com, if I click on learning path, I can see a lot of network requests being made, right? But if I click on this button right here, which has now stopped logging the network request, now if I go ahead and, just go to other pages, you're going to see that no network request gets logged now. And as soon as I resume it, the log gets clear first of all. And now I can scroll down because I know that this is lazy loading in effect. So that is why it loads the images and, the data lazily. So yeah, I mean, that's the basic of network requests, that, you can toggle the behavior, you can clear it with the button. You have a little bit of bells and whistles going on here with the settings and, filters and search. We're going to come to that later on. And there's also this disable cache. For you, it might not be enabled, but I try to keep it enabled so that I do not get cached responses from server or, from the browser itself. So there's that. That's like a basic introduction. In the next video, we're going to be diving deep into a single request, seeing how it sort of works internally, right? And what all information the DevTools provide to you as a developer. So that is all for this one. I'm going to see you in the next video. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let us just go ahead and take a deep look into a single request. Now, let's just go ahead and do that. First of all, let me just go ahead and refresh this. And you can see at the top, the first thing which happens is pay close attention to how these requests are laid down. These requests are laid down in the order they are made, not in the order when they are resolved, right? So it is possible that this request takes 3 seconds, but this one takes 20 milliseconds and, the order would be same. So what your browser does is, at the first time it sees a document, I'm on codedamn.com/courses. So it loads this page called codedamn, this URL right here, right? And we have discussed a lot of information about all of this in this particular course, HTTP Fundamentals. So feel free to just go ahead and watch this course if you want to know in depth about how HTTP protocol and all that stuff works. But I'm assuming that you sort of either don't want to know it or you already have the knowledge, right? But if you do have interest, if you do want to know about it, just go ahead and watch this HTTP concepts course. Again, it's sort of like available for you. So with that being out, this headers information contains information about the particular request, right? Just like I said, it contains more information in this course, but just to give you a quick crash course, this is the request URL, the request method in your REST API sort of syntax, the status code from the server, like 200 means everything is fine. The remote address shows you the IP address of the machine, right? In this case, this is the IP address of codedamn.com server from which this response gets back. This refer policy, you don't really have to worry about that much. The response headers right here are the headers which are sent by the remote server, right? So these are the headers of the HTTP request. The request headers are the headers which you make as a sort of a person, right? And yep, that's basically it. That's all there is to a request. There might be a body in case of post request and when you're uploading something or saving a form or something, but for the most part this is fine. Then in this tab, in this particular tab right here in the networks tab, you'll also have a preview section which sort of gives you the HTML preview of the thing which you're looking for, right? So if you select, let's say, a CSS request, the preview will give you a nice little I have clicked on this automatically. I have this configured automatically. By default, you might see something like this. But if you click on this button right here, pretty print, it actually nicely formats your document as well, right? And this is like especially useful for JavaScript. So if I click on this, I mean, for me, you are seeing it by default because I remember I have turned on a setting which does that. But if you do not see that, you can just go ahead and click on this button manually and it will pretty print the file, right? Although it does not really help that much because this is still sort of obfuscated, but anyway. So preview is that, right? Response, however, response is the raw interpretation of what you have got from the server, right? And the best way to understand it is in case of a document, right? So the preview for the document would be visible something like, it will try to make sense of the page, but the response is the HTML response which you see, right? So there's that. Then you have an initiator tab, which sort of gives you like, the chain of request, how it happens. So you can see that at the root, we request this particular page, which first of all requests this Google font. Then it requests the CSS file, then this CSS file, then this JavaScript file. Then this JavaScript file internally requests all these things, right? So you can see that you can really make sense of what request is being loaded by which script or which document or which part, and just connect the dots from this whole tree-like representation from there. So you see at the top, at the very first level, we make this request. Once we make this request, this document gets loaded and makes this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 sort of request from the root level. Then, for example, you can jump into any single request like this one, and you can see this JavaScript makes another bunch of requests, right? So you get the idea of how this initiator tab works. So this timing tab is something I would like to discuss later on in the more intermediate or advanced sort of Chrome DevTools course, where we will discuss about color coding and, the durations of DNS request and what does time to first byte means. It's more like an optimization. It will be coming in the optimization side of courses, right? So yeah, but you can think about this as a complete breakdown of a single request from starting to ending and where all the times were spent, right? So you can see that for 18 milliseconds, this request was queued. I don't know, maybe like, you already were running at a maximum 6-8 TCP connections, or maybe like, the computer was not able to handle it for 18 milliseconds or, whatever the reason is. Then, you get the basic breakdown of the whole thing, right? This green thing which you see is basically the browser waiting for the server to respond, right? So for 100 milliseconds, the browser is waiting for the server to say something. And then server, once it starts saying, it just takes 3 milliseconds to download it. So that's pretty cool, right? And then finally, the cookies tab is responsible for displaying the cookies which are set on this particular page, right? So again, you can use this, or you can use an extension like edit this cookie, which I sort of like prefer over this one because it's much more easy to manipulate and, just import things than compared to this one. But anyway, you can use this one as well if you want. So yeah, that's a basic overview of the tabs in the network tabs itself. And that's pretty much it for this video. I'm going to see you in the next one where we will discuss more about the networks tab. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let's just go ahead and take a look at how you can filter the network request, right? So you're going to be using this all the time, these filters right here. Why? Because when you're visiting a single website, chances are that that particular website is going to just start, just cramming requests at you, because, a lot of website makes a lot of requests all the time. So what you want to do is, for example, if you're trying to see if a JS request is made, or, most common one is this XHR. If a XHR request in the background is made, then you just filter out them like this, right? So you see these requests right here are either fetch request or are XHR request. And I'm just assuming these are all fetch requests because, the type actually says here that they are fetch request. So you don't really have to worry about XHR anymore, I guess. So these are like standard typical requests, which we saw last time as well in the regular thing, but it is sort of like easier for you to group them in a small fashion using these filters, right? You can play around with JS. So now you're going to see these are all JavaScript files. Nothing is like CSS or anything. You have the CSS filter, you have the images filter. So you can see the preview for image and response sort of, you don't really get a response because, well, it could technically show you the hex dump of image, but I think that's fine. But the preview shows you the image. Then you also have all sorts of similar things. Then, for media would be like audio or video if it is loaded. Like if you go to a sort of a simple course, I guess, if I just start this or enroll this course, whatever. If I go ahead and see, you can see that now you get a media. So similar thing happens when you actually go to youtube.com as well. You're going to see that the media starts populating. So there's that. Then the font is obviously the font files, which gets loaded, in this case from Google's gstatic CDN. The doc is basically the doc which appears on the first, this would always be present, right? The first doc which gets loaded, because this is like the actual HTML which you receive. Other docs could be the docs which you request using fetch or XHR, or they could be like iframe embeds, right? So if you embed a website with iframe right here, so that would also appear inside the doc section. Then WS is WebSockets. So WebSockets is something very, very interesting. If you go to, for example, let's see, if I resume a lab, for example, this one. So we use at CodeDam, we use WebSockets to communicate with these let's start fresh, these sort of updates. So you can go ahead and see that thing as well. So these are like WebSocket connections, right? Then manifest is for manifest.json, and other is for any other request which it could not really determine, right? Sometimes you're going to see CSS and JS as well. So I don't really exactly know what is the criteria of getting into other. But yeah, for the most part, the things which matter to you would always be visible in the XHR or in the JS, CSS, image, and media worlds. So there's that. But there's also one little neat trick is, what if you want to view like XHR and media together, or maybe like image and media together, or maybe like font and media? You can just make any combination. So the way you do that is you press Command and click on the other thing, right? So now I have pressed Command. I think for Windows it will be Control or Alt. Please just try any key. I'm not very sure about Windows, but it would be either one of them. So press that key and click on the other one. So now I have selected both media and font, and both of the results are being displayed. Just click on any single one to just remove that effect. So if I want like WebSocket and doc, so there you go. Something like this, right? So yeah, that's how in a nutshell the filters work in a dev tool in the networks tab, and super interesting as well, super important for debugging and stuff. So that's pretty much it for this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let's just quickly take a look at how you can customize these column names and what most of them really mean. So for the most part, what you can do is right click on them and you can select the things which you want to be available inside this particular view. And you can see by default name is mandatory, right? But you can toggle other things if you want. For example, this connection ID is sort of like the TCP connection of the particular request. So if two IDs are same, that means they are carried on the single TCP connection. They are carried on the single TCP connection, right? So there's that. right? So you can enable that by right clicking on this and selecting the connection ID. You have priority, can't speak. You have priority, you have time, size, set cookies, all that stuff. If I enable remote address, for example, then you'll start seeing the IP address of the remote server directly inside your inspector itself. So you don't really have to click on this and then check this out, right? You can have something like this. So it really depends on your preference, what sort of things you want or not, right? So there's that. You can disable things, or you can, if you just messed around, you can just reset that as well. So if I click on reset columns, you're gonna see, well, it does not really resets the default columns, but just the width. But anyway, you get the idea, right? So you can play around this a little, but I would say that this sort of configuration is sort of, it works just fine for me. The name, status, type, initiator, size, time, and connection ID. This is not really required, connection ID, to be honest, but if you just want to see that, hey, just want to appreciate the HTTP 2 and 3 and how they just send multiple requests on a single connection, then you can go ahead and appreciate that using connection ID. So yeah, that was a very small, quick little tip I wanted to give you in the networks tab. And that is it. I'm gonna see you in the next one really soon. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let's just take a look at how you can throttle your network request speed using Chrome DevTools. And the way you do that and why you would do that in the first place is, for example, let's say you want to test how your website behaves or loads when the internet connection is poor. Now, well, how do you actually go about this? If you think about this, this is an interesting problem if you got a nice connection on home, right? So you either have to like mess around with modem settings or speed and all that stuff to make that possible, or maybe use an external tool which just bandwidth limits your whole OS or something. I don't know how you would do that, right? But you surely have to dig up a little. But if you're doing it for the web, DevTools actually provides you a nice throttling interface directly, right? So you click on this online thing and you can just select from these presets either, or you can add your custom preset as well, more on that later. But let's say if you select this slow 3G right here, right? So you're gonna see this exclamation icon, that means something is wrong with this tab. So you might want to consider like looking at this before you move away. And once you select that preset and refresh this, you're gonna see things are much slower now. Well, actually this is faster for CodeDam because, well, the website is faster in general. But if you go to like google.com now, you're gonna see it'll take a lot of time. It'll just not really lot again, because again, Google is also fast, but let's say New York Times, or maybe like Y Combinator, why not? HackerRank. So if I click on this, you can see now the thing keeps on loading and looks like HackerRank is also fast. So why not New York Times? Because I've heard like that is a slow website, right? And it should not be. So if I click on this, let us see how much time does it take for it to load. So you can see we have a lot of images which are being throttled, and the content is loading and loading and loading and loading and loading. It has been like, I don't know, let's see how much time it has been, 17 seconds, and it is still not finished. The indicator is still going on. 20 seconds, indicator is still going on. 24, 25. So you see that Chrome browser has actually throttled how much your browser can perform, right? If you switch this to fast 3G, you're gonna see things start getting improved. You're gonna have a little bit of better speed. You can see the requests are now loading faster. If I click on disable cache here, and if I just click on this online, you're gonna see that we have a much better speed now. Everything loads very quick. So if I go ahead and refresh this, this is how it loads on the original internet connection, right? In a 5 seconds, approximately, the page is visible. But if you throttle it, you're gonna have a bad time as a user. But anyway, that's how it works. You can click on this add custom profile. You can say my own speed, kinda, right? And you can specify how much download and upload you want exactly, and latency as well if you want. One quick disclaimer with this is that this network throttling, I have seen that it does not work with WebSockets, right? So if you have a WebSocket connection which is opened, Chrome would not network throttle that TCP connection. I'm not really sure of the reasons why. This might be a technical sort of thing to achieve or something like that. But yeah, for now, WebSocket connections, at least this is like the one thing I'm aware about. There might be other sort of equivalents, I'm not very sure. But these WebSocket connections are not network throttled. Everything else like network requests or images or JavaScript, CSS, fonts, all that stuff is throttled, but WebSockets are not. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Hope you learned something new today and have fun, like, you know, just undocking this and giving a friend of yours with a slow 3G to browse the internet, right? That's a fun experiment to do and test the patience of somebody actually. So that is all for this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one really soon. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video in which I want to show you how you can copy requests from here. And what do I mean by that? What you can do is you can right click on any request and you can go to this copy right here. It actually has a lot of interesting other options as well. But what you can do is you can copy this, and right here, this is a super interesting section. You can copy it as fetch, or, you know, Node.js fetch or curl or all as fetch. This all will basically just copy everything. But what we want is just copy as fetch, for example. Now, if I go ahead and go to console and paste this, what you can see is that it automatically created a syntax for a fetch request, which includes the correct resource, correct headers from which the request was made, and, you know, all the good stuff as well. These are also headers only, you know, but yeah, you get the idea. So this is super useful, not only for when you want to replay the request. You can actually, I guess, replay from here as well, I think. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know, maybe not. But what you can do is just copy this and paste it in the console, hit enter, and what you're gonna do, what you're gonna see is that that request is again made and is visible in the networks tab. So this is like a thing which you can use a lot of times while debugging and replaying the request. And if you have a different client, for example, if you want to perform the same request which has been done on, let's say, a bash terminal, so you can go copy and copy this as curl, right? And you can just hop over to a terminal and paste it. Now, the advantage of this is that you don't have to, like, you know, rewrite this request from fetch syntax to curl. The browser will do it for you with the correct headers, you know, a lot of times with the correct cookies. And, you know, that is like the most important thing, to get the request syntax correct. And if you know that the request works in the browser, and if you want to debug it on a production server or somewhere else, you can just go ahead, right click on the request, copy as curl, and paste it in your bash terminal, and it'll just work just basically beautifully, right? Just out of the box. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this quick little video. I hope you should, I thought that you should know about this, because this is like a pretty interesting feature. So that's all for this one. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, we're gonna be starting off with a new section, and that is gonna be Elements tab in the Chrome DevTools. Now, if I go ahead and open Chrome DevTools, you're gonna see that the element tabs is probably the first tab as well in your default setup as well. So first things first, what exactly is Elements tab, and how you're gonna use it? We're gonna be discussing that. We're gonna be discussing the style section, computed layout, all that stuff. And I'm also gonna give you a couple of neat tricks you can do with the DOM here in this particular section. So super excited to start that. That is all for this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one really soon. Hey everyone, welcome back. And let's just begin with this particular section right here. What exactly is this, right? So it might seem familiar with the HTML of the document, right? So if you go ahead and take a look, this is basically the HTML of the loaded document, right? And if we see in the sort of inspector as well, this is exactly the HTML, right? Well, there's a little bit of difference. Well, you see that your server sends you the raw HTML document, the raw contents, you know, HTML, head, title, meta, script, and all that stuff. And you see that even if your HTML is broken or something, things work out to be fine. But this right here, This is an actual representation of the HTML DOM, HTML document object model tree, right? And this is always perfect HTML, right? That means the browser has fixed your mistakes. It has tried to make a lot of sense of what you're writing, and it has done all the good stuff. So for this, let me just go ahead and go back to CodeDam real quick, because I will be able to construct an example. CodeDam, dashboard, playgrounds, and HTML, CSS. I probably need to like reduce it from 4 clicks to a little bit less. But anyway, once we are on the playground, inside index.html file, you can see, let's just remove this and let's just add a hello world with an h1. So you see that this technically works, you get a hello world, but this is a wrong HTML document, because an HTML document consists of much more than that, starting with doc type, then HTML head, body, and all that stuff. So it displays on the web page, it's fine. And in fact, if you go to this web page in a new tab and open the source code for this, you're gonna see it sends h1 hello world only as a web page. But if you open the DevTools, you're gonna see that magically the HTML is constructed by the browser. So you see this HTML tag, you see the head tag. Well, these are like because of some extension or something, not coming from the browser itself. This is the body tag. This is again from extension, I think Grammarly or something. These like extensions try to mess around with the DOM all the time. But you can see this is the difference between a DOM and a regular document. And this elements tab right here always displays you the updated DOM, which is currently on the page, not the HTML itself. You know, you can actually go ahead and remove this node as well. So if you go ahead and delete this element, you're gonna see this as well. This is the updated representation, which is not really reflected in the source code, right? The source code, if you go ahead, will still display h1 hello world, but the actual representation of the DOM is displayed in the elements tab. Super important to understand. And yeah, that's like basically what this section is, right? So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one. We'll be diving a little bit deep into how we can interact with all the elements here. So that is all for this one. I'm gonna see you in the next video. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this one, we're gonna be taking a look at how you can inspect a particular node, right? So let me just go ahead and restore the nice little code which we had here. And right here, if I refresh this, you're gonna see that we have some nodes, right? And I hope you know that node is just a sort of an element on the DOM. So this P is a node, this Li is a node, this marker sort of is also a node. I think I have enabled like shadow DOM or something. That is why these are appearing. I don't really know if that's an update or something. But anyway, you can see this is also a text node. So how do you inspect a node? Well, first of all, what you can do is you can just right click on a node. You don't even have to select it or something. You know, you can just right click on a node and click on inspect. And by default, Chrome DevTools is smart enough to bring that particular node into the focus, right? So if I right click on this and click on inspect, you're going to see that now we are inside the span tag, right? So you can see that this interesting flash of color, right? That just means that your content inside this is updated. So that's something you can just consider, right? But anyway, this is like one way. Another way is to click on this button right here, which says select an element or inspect in the page to inspect it. And, you know, just start hovering over elements, right? So you're going to see that you get all these shiny backgrounds and boxes and all that stuff. But what is happening actually is that DevTools is trying to make sense of where your cursor is and then trying to grab an element which it thinks is the closest match of what you want. So for example, if I want to have this HTML and CSS, this P tag, and if I go ahead and click on this, that gets into focus automatically. Then I can go ahead and go to H1. That gets into focus, right? I can go ahead and click on this, just select the time, that gets into focus. So that's how it works, right? So this is one way, this is another way. Another way is to, within itself, within the elements tab, just press Command F and it's gonna say find by string, selector or XPath. And here, just like it says, you can say time right now, and you know, this is a string match. Selector would be a CSS selector. For example, if I want to search for time, so I'm going to write ID time, and you can see it gives me this particular div, right? So this is basically a CSS selector, and that's how it works. XPath is also, you know, sort of a convention which you can use to traverse the DOM tree. But to be fair, I don't really know a lot of XPath syntax. So you can Google up XPath syntax, but it'll also work. It starts with something like, I don't know. It starts with some slash or something. I don't remember exactly, but that's how it works. For the most part, you will be good enough with just string or CSS selector itself. These are like two powerful tools. So yeah, that's how you're going to select some elements. 3 major ways. First of all, right click and inspect. Otherwise, use this as the grabber. Otherwise, for a very fine control, you can use the Command F and just search it manually. So yeah, that's all for this video. I'm going to see you in the next one really soon. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this one, I just want to show you the operations which you can do with your DOM tree layout here. And trust me, this is like a very flexible sort of environment you can play around with. You can edit values, you can edit tag names, and you can do all sorts of stuff. So, I can just go ahead and double click on this, and I can write something like this, hit enter, and it'll update on the page, right? All those people who do these inspect element hacks, which is like super common, like increasing your like count or follower count like this, is done like this, using this inspector. So you can go ahead and make this from you have 0 followers. For example, this is displayed on the page. You can go ahead and make this to you have 100K followers, right? So I can go to my Twitter, for example, like this, and I can just go ahead and change this from 2773 followers to something like, I don't know, 1.8 million, right? So, and just take a screenshot of this and just circulate. So that's how these standard inspect element hacks are carried around. But anyway, coming back to the actual thing, just like I said, it's a pretty flexible thing, right? So you can just double click on something to edit its value. You can double click even on the tag name, and I can just write it as H2, H3 if I want, H4, just change everything you want, right? And you can also press Command Z or Control Z to undo what you did. So that's pretty cool, right? If I made a mistake, I can just press Command Z. For example, if I deleted this node, right click and delete. If I deleted this node by mistake, oops, I can just right click or maybe like Command Z to undo it, and it will appear back on the page, right? You can also like reorder stuff by dragging this and dropping it here. So you can see that you can edit these files as the first li which we have. I can drag it and just drop it somewhere here. So you can see now this is number 4. You can drag it and drop it above H1. So there you go. So the POP is now above H1. So you can just play a little bit within itself. You can basically drag drop things. You can rename tags, you can rename attributes. If this was an attribute which we set, we can do something cool and set its value like this, so it gets updated. All that stuff can be done. And then you can just probably go to console and say document.query selector something cool by the tag name, and you're gonna see that body pops up because, well, the DOM is updated, right? The DOM contains a tag which is something cool. So that's why. So yeah, that's how you can work around with elements. That's how you can play around with it. And that's pretty much it for this video. I'm going to see you in the next one really soon. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video in which I will show you how you can use this $0 syntax to your advantage. So whenever you click on any of the elements, you can see this $0 appears, and this means that whatever is the selected element in the DOM, you can use it in the console as $0. So once you write $0, you're going to see this in this right now is this p tag. You can also hover over this. And if you go back to like UL, for example, and write $0, it becomes UL, right? This is only a console feature, debugging feature. You cannot use $0 in the, in your code or anything, because obviously that wouldn't make a lot of sense. But this, for example, makes a lot of sense. For example, I can just say $0.inner text, right? And I just get the text for all the UL and LIs. So I don't really have to do a document.query selector, UL, and then I'm just doing inner text, right? So this even becomes more prominent if you are into a deeply nested thing, right? Where you would have a little bit of difficulty in getting out the selector? Well, you technically can just go ahead and right click and copy the selector right here, or copy the JS path actually. We're going to come to that later on, but this is also a handy thing to have, right? You can just move around here and there. Welcome to codedam. Just go to console $0.inner text is equal to something cool. Hit enter and the page updates, right? So that's how you can also do it. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the $0 sort of thing. It is a lot of times handy, I would say, but not exactly as in, if you're trying to debug your JavaScript code. It's only just handy if you're trying to debug your HTML, or sort of like a simple thing. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let's just go ahead and see how you can add styles directly from the DevTools, right? So you see this section right here. This is actually interesting. And what you can do using this section, first of all, you can see that the element which you have selected displays all the styles, right? Make sure you're in the styles tab. So the element which you have selected displays the styles, but you can also jump in and modify a lot of these styles, right? For example, if I go to body, you can see these are the styles, but I can click on the value and start increasing it, right? I'm just using arrow key here, up arrow key, and it just increases. And you can see that it sort of like reflects in real time whenever I update the value, right? So that's a very nice sort of way of creating pages, right? You can just go ahead, put it like this, start increasing the values, messing around with margins like 20 pixels, background of black, color of white. So you can do all the stuff, and once you're done, you could probably just copy paste this in your file. I mean, that's like the easy way. You can also set up workspaces. We're going to come to that later on in some intermediate or advanced course, but for now you can just copy this, go back to your playground, styles file, just paste it like this, right? And you just have the same effect. So that's simple and that's convenient. But what else you can do is you can also add new styles. So if you click on this plus button right here, you're going to see that it gets the selector which you are on, and it gives you a new block of information, right? So you can do this to select elements which do not have an existing selector. So you can go to this H1 and you can see that this is a user agent style sheet. That's why you see this is bold and all that stuff. So that is done with CSS internally, and you cannot really edit it. Why? Because this is not present on your page. It comes from the browser engine itself. So you don't really want to edit it either, right? And this is like very easily overridable. I mean, this has a very low CSS specificity. So whatever you do, this will just get overridden. So I can just go ahead and say font size, for example, 40 pixels, and start increasing it. And it just works out of the box. So there's that, right? You can also sort of create an interesting thing. So you can click on this H1, you can say on hover, I want the color to be yellow, right? And once you do that, when you hover over this, this is all fine. But see that if I move away from this, that hover sort of syntax is gone, right? So that hover syntax is not available now. If I want to change the color, how do I do that? So for that thing, you have to force your element into a particular state inside the DOM itself as well, right? So so that your styles appear here. And the way you do that is you click on the element, you go to this particular thing, toggle element state, this hover. By chance, it is also named hover, but these are all the element states which you can force the element into. Right? So if you click on this focus, nothing's really happening because, well, we haven't defined any styles, but we have defined styles for hover. So when you select on hover, you can see your style appears now magically, right? Because in the DOM, although your cursor is not on the element, but you have forced the element into a pseudo state, right? Not really a pseudo state, in a state which has a pseudo selector. So now you can go ahead and mess around with, colors and all that stuff. You can actually click on the color if I did not tell you that. You can click around and mess around with that, with the hex values, with the default colors. There are some nice colors, but yeah, you can go ahead and play around with that all day. But that is how you sort of like force the element as well into a state. Again, you can go ahead on any single element, click on them, to get a nice selector, start messing around with them, like font size 20 pixels, or much more than that, font weight, bold, and if they have been hovered, background green. So this works, but if I navigate around, this appears, and then I can just force it into with the hover thing, right? And now I can again mess around with this. And once I'm done with that, you can see you have actually put 2 elements in the hover state, which is pretty cool. You cannot really do that with a single mouse. But yeah, that's how it works. You can just toggle it back, and you can toggle it back as well. So there's that. Now you have a nice little party effect going on the website, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. How you're gonna work with this little section, styles here at least, and you can edit styles, you can move around, and you can do all sorts of stuff. So that is all for this one, and I'm gonna see you in the next video really soon. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let's just take a look at how you can copy CSS and JavaScript paths directly from your DOM structure. And by this, what I mean is, let's say if you want to get this bad boy in JavaScript, or maybe like this li tag, right? So how do you do that? And the way you do that, you can either go ahead and, sit down and compute how, just a selector, how you should select it. Or you can just right click on this, go to this copy, and then select, just click on either copy JS path or select on copy selector. So let's say if I click on the copy selector, and if I add a new style and paste it, you're gonna see it actually gave me a nice little description of body, UL, and li and as child of 1, which is a pretty solid selector, right? You won't really get behind, you won't really be selecting wrong elements because there's only a single UL, which is a direct child of body, and there's only a single li, which is as child 1. So if I have a color of green or like purple or whatever, you can see it works just fine, right? And you don't really have to spend a lot of mind calculating what the selector should be. Now, there are obviously other ways to select this element as well, UL, li, first child. There are other valid selectors as well, but it gives you, in my opinion, what I have seen, it gives you the strictest possible selector, right? So there's that. Next thing is, how do you copy the JavaScript path? And if you already have the CSS selector, JavaScript is sort of easy. You just have to wrap it in document.querySelector or querySelector all. But you can also get rid of that work. Just click on copy and copy JS path. And if you go to console now, I think we have a old text. If you go to console, you can see it gives you a nice sort of line of document.querySelector, and you have your element here, right? But again, why would you do something like this when you can just go ahead, click on this, and go to $0 and just write it? We have already discussed this, but yeah, this might be useful if you're just trying to copy this to a file or something. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, and that's all. I'm gonna see you in the next one really soon. Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let us just go ahead and take a look at this color selector, which is pretty interesting to me actually. And the reason for this is because this is a very powerful tool in the browser itself. And let me just tell you why. For example, if I go to this first li, when you click on this color, it actually gives you a very nice interface of selecting the color, and you can see the live changes happening in the browser itself. But what is more interesting to me is that if you drag on to the web page, it actually gives you a magnifier which helps you to pick a color from a single individual pixel as well. So that is, how cool is that? Let's just go to, for example, Google. And now let's say I want to get an exact hex value of this yellow right here. Now all these Photoshop guys are just gonna right click, save this image, and just get started with it. But what if I tell you there's a much easier way to just get this value directly from your browser? And the way you'll just do it is just, I don't know, just go ahead and set a random property which involves a color anywhere and click on this color. And then once you have the magnifier with you, just go ahead and just carefully select any pixel right here. And you have the hex value of the color. So that is cool. Google is using FABC04 as the yellow of the O. And just to be extra sure, you can just click on it on multiple different places so that you do not have selected an edge or something. But yeah, that's a solid yellow, right? So that's one neat trick. Another one is that if you click on this, sometimes, let's see, if I have, for example, if I am going ahead and selecting this element. So if I go ahead and select this background color as, I don't know, and this color right here as, well, it does not have a contrast information for this too. But sometimes, if possible, what Google would do is that it will give you some contrast information. That means how contrasty your text is compared to its background color. So if it's a big no-no, for example, I think we got one in the CodeDam playground, I guess, maybe not. Let's just go ahead and open this again. If I go ahead and give this one a color of, let's say, green, and click on this, you can see that we get a contrast ratio of 4.09, which is not recommended. So if I try to go towards more of the white side, you can see that it starts giving a higher contrast ratio, which is a double good thing, double thumbs up. So this is more like readability of text. You can see contrast ratio is 1 here, and we obviously know that I cannot see a single thing on the screen. So, you know, you can just use that as well for accessibility and stuff. So that's another trick. The third one is that you can click on this to toggle between different formats, right? So you see right here, you have the hex value. Once you click on this, it toggles to RGB, and you know, these modern browsers try to omit the commas. Although the commas will also work, the new syntax also supports these values without commas. So that's something you should know as a CSS developer, right? Then there's also this new cool kid in the town, that is the HSL. Not really new, it has been for a very long time, but you know, this is also a format, right? But the best supported, I guess, in my opinion, is hex value still, but you have your own choices to make. But anyway, this is, yeah, that's basically it for the color sort of thing. You can also scroll over this color to horizontally move, I don't know what exactly that is, but yeah, it's actually increasing the value in the hex code, which sort of follows a weird pattern. Oh, I did not know. I never like played around by browsing the color, like scrolling the color like this. So it seems like it is following a circle. I don't know. If anybody knows what this pattern is, just I would be happy to know. So anyway, that's pretty much it for this video, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this complete course. It means a lot to me that you have made it to the end. And if this course has helped you and you are not a Elite member yet, you can go ahead and purchase a Elite subscription on CodeDam, which is going to unlock not only courses like this, but many other courses. So you can go to a learning path, front-end developer, and start learning from the very bottom, from the very scratch, right? So you can start from HTML. It's going to unlock all these courses which are listed here: HTML, CSS, you know, JavaScript courses, version control system. It's going to unlock everything, and it's going to unlock these playground support, and it's going to unlock these practice projects which you can practice on your own time, right? I just showed you the interface. For example, if I go to a React practice project, if I enroll in this, you can actually build real world apps using this sort of interface, which gives you real hands-on practice on your own time, on your own terms. And you know, just a quick little environment which spins up hopefully in under 10-15 seconds, and you're good to go. So this move not only support the platform purchasing a Elite membership, but it's also a good move for you if you want to learn, if you want to start learning things. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you're already a member, then of course this does not really matter. But thank you so much for watching this complete course. And the next step from this, obviously, you're gonna know in your front-end developer learning path. So that is all for this course. I'm gonna see you in the next course really soon.